All right, today, Nostalgia Fest. TMC, Too Much Coffee, episode 23, Michael Jordan's number. What we've done, I've compiled a list of 3 shows. Kevin has also compiled a list of 3 shows. He sort of picked categories of shows, not specific TV shows.
I'm not really an analytical list person, and I can't do specifics. I have to do broad.
As the contrarian, he's like, I ain't doing your list. I'm going to do the list the way I want to do the list.
Well, I did actually try to think of some shows.
Get your list.
But I was like, there's too many. And it's like,
I know, there's too many. So I picked 3 things. He picked 3 things. We're just going to go back and forth and talk about our list. Now, listen, just because you feel nostalgic about something does not mean that it was a good show.
Yes, true.
It just means that when you think back to it, you have that good feeling. Like when you think back to watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something like that. Was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a good show? For kids, yeah.
Yeah.
If you went back and watched it today as an adult, you might have a lot of problems with it. Doesn't make any sense.
Oh, yeah, they usually didn't. They're just fun shows.
When you're a kid, you don't care as much about things making sense.
Yeah.
You just get into the whole vibe of the show. But when I think back to watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a kid and having the toys, and I even got my hands on one of those comic books, like one of the original Eastman and Laird comic books. I get that good nostalgic feeling. That's what we're reveling in today. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the stuff we grew up as watching as kids. I was watching cartoons in the late 80s. And my boy here, Kevin, by the way, if this is your first episode, I'm Jason. This is Kevin. Welcome to Too Much Coffee. We hope you enjoy the show. My boy Kevin here was watching cartoons as a kid in the early 90s, I would say.
Yeah, early to late 90s, early 2000s. I'm really doing the 90s in this one.
Yeah. So,
and it's funny, like I said before we started, I'm really not a super nostalgic person, but I just like this stuff. I just like these shows.
Yeah,
they're not good. I enjoyed them as a kid, and I just like them. I
don't have that version of nostalgia where you're like, oh man, I wish I could just leave my life and go back.
Yeah,
to the
I
past.
feel like some people are like, oh, I wish I could go back and that.
Dude, I wish I could just go back and be a kid again. I had no responsibilities. I mean, no, don't get me wrong. I have those moments where I'm like, oh,
yeah,
today sucks. I wish I could just go back and be a kid. This sucks, dude.
Oh yeah, well, paying bills and stuff like that sucks, but I would not want to go back to being a kid. I didn't like being a kid. I like being an adult.
So anyway, we're just gonna go back now. When we were kids, I don't know what your childhood was like.
Yeah,
talking to you, the listener, of course. I know what Kevin's childhood was like. Since
you were there for it.
But you, the listener, I don't know what your childhood was like. I don't know what you had growing up. A lot of people had cable, Nickelodeon, stuff like that. We didn't have that. When we were kids, it was the satellite dish.
And that really came in the mid 90s. We had antenna before that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said satellite dish, but I meant antenna. I just had a total brain.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many of you, I'm sure lots of people listening to this had the antenna, but you had the big antenna sticking up on top of the house, and you had the little box that was labeled north, south, east, and west. And so you would turn on channel 2 or whatever you were watching on the TV. And if it's not coming in, you just turn. Yeah. Maybe if you're set to north, you turn it over to east.
Yep.
And this thing was so slow. So you pop this thing over to east, and it's like, and it felt like it took eternity to get over there. But you just keep turning the knob until the reception is good, and then you stop it.
Yep.
And that's how we used to watch the TV way back in the day, kids. Way back in the day. We didn't have cable. We didn't have satellite dish. If we wanted to watch cartoons, it was pretty much Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. And there were some cartoons that came on in the morning before you went to school.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a different way of watching cartoons than the kids do now. My kids, first of all, there are 1,000 cartoons they can watch.
Yeah.
And so they just have a few favorites, and I just turn on Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever and just pick one, and you can play however much you want, anytime you want. That's how they watch cartoons. But for us, it was a special treat. Yeah. You were like, oh, Animaniacs are coming on tomorrow. Oh, Dragon Ball is coming on at 6:30. I got to try to wake up early enough to watch it before school.
You had to adjust your schedule to the show and not vice versa. It wasn't really on demand unless you had a VCR and knew how to program it.
Oh, and another way we watch cartoons is the video store, the
Yeah.
the magic ancient video store
Yep.
that no longer exists. Blockbuster and all that stuff. We didn't have
Yeah.
a Blockbuster, but we had a tiny little video store for our town.
Yep.
And we would go there all the time and rent video games and rent like cartoons to watch. I could rent, like 3 episodes of He-Man on a big VHS tape,
Yeah.
or like Danger Mouse on a tape, or whatever, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So you'd go to the video store and you just find something cool to watch.
Yeah.
So it was either antenna or VHS
Yep.
videotapes. Do you just feel? Listen, do you feel the nostalgia? Just me talking about VCRs and antennas and the sound that the antenna makes when it rotates and all these old 80s cartoons. Do you just feel the nostalgia washing, assuming you're old enough to have experienced these things? Do you just feel the nostalgia washing over you right now? That's what we're celebrating today. We're just jumping into the ball pit of nostalgia and letting it wash all over us today. Okay, first show on my list, which was probably my favorite as a kid, He-Man.
He-Man.
Now, if you're a little younger, this show has been rebooted a couple times. They made it like some anime kind of show.
Yeah.
And I think there was another one. I don't know anything about all that. There was the one that Kevin Smith did that people were crapping all over.
Yeah.
That that whole thing. We won't get into that.
I haven't seen
You can
any of those.
watch YouTube videos all about all that mess.
Although they did make the She-Ra spinoff, which is supposed to be good.
Oh yeah. The art style was really different.
Yeah.
Like the very cartoony art style. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So-
think it's a very different thing.
I watched He-Man actually the show was a lot older than I realized.
Oh,
It was
really?
like early 80s when the cartoon was made.
Yeah.
But I was watching it in the late 80s. And that was my favorite cartoon.
Yeah.
I loved He-Man. I bought, like all the action figures, had the castles. Castle Grayskull.
I remember all those action figures, actually.
And Snake Mountain.
Yeah.
Whatever Skeletor's castle was called, I had
Yeah.
his too, with all the traps in it, and it had a microphone attached. Quote microphone. It was an
Yeah.
unpowered microphone, but you could speak into the microphone, and it would sort of amplify your voice, but it sounded terrible at the same time.
Yeah, it's like that little toy microphone they used to sell that had a spring in it that would kind of
A
quotation
spring.
fingers echo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you could hear the spring when you spoke into
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It sounded so bad. Anyway, He-Man was my favorite show. I used to watch it all the time. Watched all the episodes. It's been so long since I've watched it. It's so funny, like how important it was as a kid, and now I can
Yeah.
remember. I can remember lots about the show, like the characters and the premise of the show. But as far as the storylines, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I went back and I watched season 1, episode 1 of He-Man, the original animated series for this show that we're doing today.
Yeah.
Here's the premise of the first show. I mean, they just jump right into it. So if you didn't watch He-Man, He-Man is just this guy. He's a prince. His parents are the king and queen of Eternia. And He-Man is like Clark Kent.
Yeah.
He's like this Clark Kent character. He acts like a spoiled rich prince brat, but it's all like a trick to keep anybody from knowing that he's actually He-Man.
Yeah.
Why he doesn't want anybody to know he's He-Man, I don't get. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But anyway, Prince Adam is He-Man. When he pulls the sword out and he says, by the power of Grayskull, fireworks start shooting out, lightning comes down, he turns into He-Man, the strongest man in the world.
Yeah.
And he fights against the evil Skeletor, who is hilarious, and the voice actor is perfect. And Skeletor is always trying to take over the kingdom and take over the planet. And He-Man is always there to stop him. And you got a whole cast of characters on both sides. So the whole show is just about He-Man versus Skeletor. And I freaking loved this show.
Yeah.
The name is hilarious, first of all. He-Man.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing I was going to point out. It's an absurd name.
The
He-Man.
absurdities with this show are endless, starting with the name. He-Man. I would love to know how that happened.
Yeah.
He-Man. What's funny is that the show started off, and I didn't know this as a kid, but when the show started off, it was toys. The toys came first. Mattel was just creating this world so they could sell toys. And in each box, you would get a little mini comic, and it would explain that character and his role in the world.
Yeah.
And it sort of filled out the lore. And so kids were buying these toys and learning about the land, and like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then they're like, we need to make a cartoon.
Yeah.
So that's what they did.
You got to collect them all.
They got Filmation to make this He-Man cartoon. It's the cartoon is pretty cool. The artwork is cool.
Yeah.
Like the backgrounds and just the way the stuff looks. And what's funny is a lot of it is rotoscoped. So like,
oh, interesting.
if you don't know, rotoscoping is where you will film someone doing a movement and then you animate on top of that.
Yep.
So sometimes you're watching He-Man and you're like, God, that looks weirdly realistic.
Yeah.
But the artwork was cool. And the characters were wild and creative and crazy. You had Beast Man, you know, who looks kind of like Bigfoot, wearing Bigfoot with no pants, but wearing like a hair not a loincloth, but like hair underwear. They use the same body type for all the characters.
Yeah.
I guess so the toys are easier to make. So like they all have barbarian hair underwear, no pants, and then the boots with like the hairy, you know, the tops.
Yeah.
And they're freaking shredded, 6-packs. You can see every
course.
muscle. And that's the basic format for every character.
Yeah,
and then you had a different one for the women. Merman, who looks exactly like I just said, except he's got this armor on and he's green and he's got this funny like merman looking head thing.
Yeah.
And then you've got Skeletor, the ultimate bad guy, who's got a skeleton face with the purple hood. And He-Man had his sword of power and Skeletor had his sword of power. And they were like both different parts of the same sword.
Yeah.
So if you put them together, you would have the ultimate sword of power. But the He-Man, the hero, and Skeletor, the villain, each had half of the sword of power.
That's
anyway,
awesome.
This show is so ridiculous, like everything about it. So first of all, and it is a kid's show, so I'm not really complaining because as a kid, I loved it, and kids loved it. But as an adult, when you go back and watch it, you're like, oh my God, this is hilarious. So you got Prince Adam, who has to act like the biggest wiener, lame, cowardly. Like every time danger happens, it's like Clark Kent and Superman. Every time danger happens, Adam's like, I got to go to the bathroom. And he just disappears. And then Superman shows up. And then when the danger's over, Adam's like, oh, hey, I'm back. Did I miss anything, guys? So everybody around him has to think that he's just a loser and a coward and unreliable.
That's
and
hilarious.
it's like, you have to live like this, dude.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Why don't you just be He-Man? I mean, you're the son of the king.
Yeah, yeah.
And the king is always basically the king and everyone around him are always essentially saying, man, I wish Adam wasn't like a disappointing loser all the time.
Yeah.
Man, I wish he just wasn't such a disappointing loser. It's like, he's not, but he is. It's like, why are you doing that to yourself?
It doesn't have to be a secret identity, I don't guess.
No, you don't have to.
Yeah.
I don't know if they ever explained why it felt necessary to hide his identity as He-Man. And why don't you just say He-Man all the time?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't get it. If you go back now, you gave me this book. My brother, as a present to my like nostalgia for this show, my brother gave me this book that was full of all the comics, all the He-Man comics, including all the mini comics that you got with the toys way back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Early 80s. So when you read these things, at first, He-Man was just some barbarian.
Yeah.
And he left his village to, you know, like the planet was being threatened by Skeletor, and he left his tribe and he just went to take part, to find his place in the world.
Yeah.
And he finds this sci-fi stuff like a force field belt and this armor and stuff like that. And that's how he becomes He-Man, because of this sci-fi, like borderline magic stuff that he finds.
Yeah.
Anyway, He-Man was awesome. The toys were awesome. The music was great. By the power of Grayskull. And the fireworks and the cool stuff. Kevin.
Skeletor. Yeah.
Oh, the voice actor was Skeletor was perfect.
Yeah. We need some Skeletor sound effects on the.
I agree 100%.
I'll get you, He-Man.
And Skeletor was supposed to be a big scary bad guy, but even his own, the first episode that I rewatched. So even in the first episode, Skeletor's like, oh, I've got this thing that will help us conquer Eternia. And what it was, it's like, it looks like when you propose to your fiance. So it's a box with a big diamond in it.
Yeah.
Well, for most of us, probably a small diamond, but
Yeah.
for me, it wasn't a diamond at all. We went to we bought something in Mexico.
Yeah.
It was a sapphire,
Oh,
way
yeah.
cheaper.
There you go.
But anyway, it looked like it was just a box of diamond, and it was called the Diamond of Disappearance. So if anybody
hell yeah.
looks at this diamond, they disappear into another dimension.
Oh, that's
This is
crazy.
episode 1.
Yeah.
He's like,
I've got this will cat. We'll conquer Eternia for sure with this.
and his own people are like, we've heard this before. Like, why should we believe you this time?
Yeah.
So Skeletor was getting crapped on from episode 1. Like, he's a complete buffoon. Anyway.
I don't guess you can go too hardcore of the kids show.
No, I mean, they all have swords. Nobody gets stabbed or cut.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But the robots, they get it. And it is this weird combination of fantasy and it's like Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
It's this weird combination of swords and technology.
Yeah.
So He-Man,
which I weirdly love. I don't think RPGs do this as much anymore, but like the old Wizardry and Might and Magic games used to do that a little bit.
I like
Maybe
it
not
too.
Might and Magic, but Wizardry used to do
No,
that
I like
later
it too.
ones.
It doesn't really in Ultima, like in the
Yeah.
Ultima 1 anyway, you could go to space.
Yeah.
And you could get a blaster
Yeah.
and a laser sword in Ultima 1.
Yeah.
It sort of doesn't make any sense, but and Phantasy Star.
Yeah. Fantasy Star.
But it's kind of cool.
Well, at the end of spoiler alert for a 40-year-old game, but at the end of Wizardry 6, you play the whole game. You're just in a castle and you're exploring the area, and you come to the end of it, and you get into a spaceship.
Listen, if any
Which
of
I
you
love it.
listening to this have ever beaten a Wizardry game, please put it in the comments because who can beat those? Those things are borderline
I
impossible.
can because they're good. They're so good.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. They're hard. Freaking hard.
Yeah. Well, the early ones are especially hard.
Oh my God. It's like pulling out your own teeth. It's so hard. Anyway, that's my show. He-Man, my number 1 show. Kevin, what's your first pick?
Yeah, so we'll just do what I call antenna shows. You have Sonic the Hedgehog, that original old show with Jaleel White.
Oh, brother.
Yep.
That show was dope.
Gotta eat a chili dog.
Come on, let's get it, chili dog.
It's so funny because Sonic the Hedgehog, I talked that there was the first show I think that you missed for whatever reason that I had to do by myself. I ended up talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, I think because the movie was coming out or something like that. Whatever. But I was thinking about that old show. It's like Sonic was supposed to be really cool, and he didn't talk in the first few games.
Yeah.
And he just kind of looked mean and like was tapping his feet. Like, yeah, this guy's cool. And then
Yeah.
everything after that where Sega's making him talk or like he's in shows and stuff, it's like, what a wiener this
So
guy
dorky.
is. It's so dorky.
You got Scratch and Grounder in the show.
Yeah. I love the animation in that show. There's something
Bro,
about the way it
Budnick.
looks.
Yeah.
Just the whole vibe of that show. I like it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
liked it.
It's great.
Time to speed, kid.
You got the public service announcements at the end of every episode.
Oh,
Like they did on
that was a
G.I.
total
Joe.
80s thing and
Yeah.
I guess early 90s thing like G.I. Joe. He-Man did some of those.
Yeah, there were a bunch of shows that did that stuff.
And they have a moral at the end of the show.
Yep.
I think that was a requirement for some shows because there was a problem with the violence and the action. And so to like balance it out, they would like you said, they would do like a, hey kids, don't talk to strangers. Don't take candy from strangers, kids. Hey kids, if someone pulls up in an unmarked van with tinted windows and offers you some candy, don't do it. By the way, if you want to watch some hilarious YouTube videos, watch the G.I. Joe PSAs.
Oh yes, classic.
Ones that are redone.
Those are early.
I can't remember what they're called. Yeah, that is old internet stuff.
Yeah.
But they're like, I don't remember the title, but it's some kind of like, just look up G.I. Joe, PSAs
Yeah.
or
Oh, yeah,
something.
you'll find
It'll
it.
pop up and they're really funny.
One of my
I'm a computer.
one of my all-time favorite YouTube videos or just internet videos in general is one of those, and it's a really short one where a kid falls off a cliff. All the kids are running off somewhere.
Yeah. G.I. Joe.
And he just like the cliff crumbles, goes, shit, and it says G.I. Joe.
Yeah, those are good. All right.
What else did you have? You had Captain Planet, which also has a banger theme song. I think Reboot was another great show, one of the early 3D shows.
And it had that really early 3D style going
Yeah.
on. I don't even know. That was more you. I don't remember that one very much.
Yeah,
I
that was-
remember it. I just don't know what it was about.
Which is a fun. That was a fun show.
Megabyte.
I'd be kind of interested to know the process behind that show because in the '90s, it must have taken forever to render all that 3D,
Oh yeah.
even though it was relatively primitive by
Yeah,
today's
because the
standards.
computers were so much slower.
How they would have done that? Like, I assume they did a new episode every week or something. I don't know.
In a way, it's probably easier. Actually, they probably loved it because it was probably so much simpler once you had the assets to create the show.
That's true.
It's like South Park.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so quick to make. That's why South Park is so timely. Why
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
always like
Yeah, it takes
on
no
top
time
of
for them to do it,
culture
yeah.
because they can make a show so fast.
Yeah.
Can't do that with The Simpsons.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
for it takes those Koreans a long time, the animated episode
Yeah.
of The Simpsons. Okay, the next show on my list is Batman the Animated Series. This one came out, I think 1994. Batman.
Which I also
Classic.
watched as a kid.
The classic
Yeah.
Kevin Conroy Batman voice. Batman the Animated Series is so awesome because the art style is so good.
Yep.
Like it's weirdly 50s. All the cars.
Yeah.
It's got what you would call a modern art style. And modern in the sense of not today modern, but modern, like
Yeah, the '90s.
just go Google it. Modern art. That's what we're talking about.
Yep.
And that's what the people who made the show were inspired by, that and some other stuff. So it's iconic looking. Like it's perfectly
Yes, it's very
simplified.
distinctive. Yeah.
It's like Alex Toth or Steve Root or someone like that.
Yeah.
Those kinds of artists where they know how to simplify things in the most perfect way that it becomes iconic.
Yeah.
That's what Batman is like, and that's part of why it's so just because it looks so
Yeah.
good. Because the art style is perfect, and the music is really good.
Everything about that show is good. And I still love all the character designs, like all of them, of the characters.
They're better than the comic books.
Yeah, I love it.
And I rewatched the first episode for this show.
Yeah.
And you go back and watch it. Actually, if you pull it up on, I think I watched it on HBO Max. It's actually labeled PG.
Yeah.
So, this was a kid show and kids watch it, maybe young teenagers, whatever. But really, for a kid show,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. For a kid show, it's surprisingly sophisticated and nuanced and complex.
Yeah.
Like when you watch it as an adult, you're like, oh, Batman would just happen to be on the roof right there, and he just happened to be here. It's like there's no way he
Yeah,
could
yeah.
do that. Like it's just full of contrivances that make no sense. But for a
Yeah.
kids show, the character relations and the types of storylines.
Yeah.
It's so funny watching it nowadays because I'm used to cartoons being like Booba or like Mickey Mouse or
Oh,
something
that's
like
funny.
that.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this first episode of Batman, and he's chasing these guys down the street, and they've got a full-on machine gun
Yep.
on a tripod in the back of a van. Oh,
Yeah. Well, they shoot guns in the opening.
yeah,
Yeah, the opening
yeah.
theme song.
Yeah, the opening is Batman stopping two bank robbers. They both pull out guns. He throws a batarang
Yep.
to hit. Yeah, exactly. And you see that at the beginning of every episode.
Yeah.
So, actually,
TVPG baby.
but the way they do it, like
Yeah.
someone only ever got shot. I read this part. Someone only ever got shot one time, and that was Commissioner Gordon got shot in the show one time. Otherwise they just
Yeah.
always miss.
well, now that I think about it, it kind of makes sense for Batman to be a kid show because he doesn't kill people anyway.
Right.
It's part of his code.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
So
Unlike, like Wolverine
it's
or
kind of
something.
silly in the way the kids show is, but when you go back and watch, it's like, wow, this show is like, there's a lot of quality in the show. And what's interesting is like the character. So in this show, they sort of retooled the characters for the show and
Yeah.
actually improved them. I mean, I'm not a comic book like expert, so maybe people who are listening to this who are comic book experts can correct me in the comments. But stuff like Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Mr. Freeze was just sort of like a crazy mad scientist guy in the comics. And in the cartoon, they spun him as he had lost his wife.
Yeah.
He froze her, and he was spending all of his time trying to find a cure for his wife's
Yeah, yeah.
illness. I don't think that was in the comics. Don't hold me to it.
Yeah.
Things like Harley Quinn was created on that show. She did not exist in the
Oh,
comic
that's
books.
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Harley Quinn, who was like one of the next to Batman and the Joker.
Yeah.
Harley Quinn is like number 3,
Yeah.
maybe. She's got her own movies, Suicide Squad and all that stuff. That she
Oh, of
came
course,
from
yeah.
Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I still love the Harley Quinn design from that series.
Mr. J?
Mr. J Puddin'.
Hey, Puddin', let me just hit this guy with my giant hammer, Puddin'. I don't know how I can swing this thing around because I weigh 42 pounds, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Oh,
of
man.
course, the classic Mark Hamill.
Yep.
You know,
The Joker.
yeah.
Yeah, I need to watch some more episodes. I need to bounce around that series and
It's
See,
worth watching just to
when you
look
get to
at
Clayface and stuff like that.
it. Yes, Clayface was great.
Yeah.
He looked awesome. So anyway, Batman was quality. That's my number 2. Kevin, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is the Cartoon Network shows from the 90s. They're like kind of Hanna-Barbera Cartoon Network shows,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like a lot of people I know grew up with like Nickelodeon, but I grew up more with like Cartoon Network. So you have like
That's funny when you
Dexter's
say
Lab.
Hanna-Barbera because in my mind, I don't think of it as Hanna-Barbera. That's awesome though, because to me, in my mind, Hanna-Barbera is Quick Draw McGraw, the
Yeah.
Jetsons,
I love
the
that stuff, too.
Flintstones, all that old 70s,
Yeah.
60s, 50s stuff. But this Cartoon Network stuff is Hanna-Barbera stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, I think most I think pretty much all of it is. don't hold me to that because
Yeah.
I didn't rewatch this stuff.
Listen, we don't
And I
have to
haven't
be right
watched-
about everything. That's
I
what
d-
the comments are for. Okay,
True.
if we're wrong, just tell us in the comments.
I haven't watched this stuff in a long time, but yeah, I mean, I just anything with the Hanna-Barbera, I love that art style so much.
No, Hanna-Barbera, the art style,
Yeah,
like I was saying about Batman, it's the same thing. Perfectly,
yeah.
perfectly simple. Not
Yeah.
simplistic, but perfectly simple.
and the two I really think of at the top of that are Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic shows. Which is kind of funny. I remember one of our relatives, like a really young girl, was talking about she was watching the Powerpuff Girls, and I said, "Oh yeah, I remember watching that when I was a kid." She's like, "You watch Powerpuff Girls?" Like, yeah. She's like, "You're a boy."
Boys can't watch the Powerpuff
So,
Girls.
why not? Powerpuff Girls is great.
Oh, times have changed.
Had all those fantastic villains.
On the Powerpuff
Yeah,
Girls,
who else did you have? You had Mojo Jojo.
Mojo Jojo, the monkey with the brain, like
Yeah.
the brain tank
Yeah,
on
yeah.
top of his head.
Gangrene. That's right. Sedusa. Oh yeah. Fuzzy Lumpkins.
It's just the names are good.
You had him. Another great one. Love that
Him?
character. Yeah.
Like the band. That reminds me of the band.
Kind of like the band.
Oh wow. That's like the devil is a sort of a cross dresser. That's kind of what it looks like.
Hell yeah. Yeah, like Dexter's Lab too. Which is God, I love the art style on that show. Johnny Bravo.
Johnny Bravo.
Johnny Bravo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I love the way those shows look.
Yep.
The art style is so good.
Oh, Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh,
was
I
another
forgot
great one.
about that one. Yeah.
It's very, I mean, fitting, but very creepy at times.
That show was creepy.
yeah.
Just like
some
SpongeBob
moments.
is
Yeah, yeah.
creepy.
SpongeBob?
Yeah. And sometimes it's creepy.
Yeah.
And Courage was Cowardly Dog was like that sometimes too. You're like, this is a kid show?
Yeah.
A little something for the adults in there, yeah.
Oh, man. What is that? Hang on.
Trying to F up your kids, you know. Get it, we trick them. It's a bait and switch. We trick them with this cute little dog show, and then we hit them with the hard stuff.
Stupid dog.
Courage the Cowardly Dog. Yeah.
Couscous. The duck.
The grandparents look great in that show.
Yeah, Eustace and Muriel.
For some reason, one thing I remember about Dexter is omelette de fromage.
Yeah.
Omelette de fromage.
I still say that every now and then.
Omelette de fromage.
Omelette du fromage. I'm looking for a particular
What was the show like? Something was wrong with him, and he could only say omelette du fromage.
He was trying to, I think, learn a second language. I don't remember why. He
Yeah.
was trying to learn French. And he had this like ridiculous contraption on his head. that he would play a record on in his sleep to learn French, but the record started skipping and it skipped on Omelette du fromage. And then he got really famous. I remember they had the Nike ad. He's like dunking in the air. Some of that pause says, "Just do it." Do you?
I don't remember that. That's hilarious. Yeah, Cartoon Network had a nice run there
Yeah.
of just cool shows.
And I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting.
I'm sure there was a ton. Yeah. Oh, Space Ghost.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Space Ghost Coast to Coast. If you've never
Oh, yeah,
watched
that's-
Space Ghost, Space Ghost Coast to Coast is one of those shows where you got to just have the right personality for it. But if you are into it, you'll love it.
Cow and Chicken. Which Cow and Chicken is great. It's such a disgusting show, really, for kids. Oh man.
That had that Ren and Stimpy vibe thing going on, right?
Oh, Two Stupid Dogs. Shit.
Two stupid dogs.
Oh, my
Two
God.
stupid dogs. Two stupid
We're
dogs.
talking about gross stuff in a kid's cartoon. I remember the episode where they tried to make, I think it's a show I'm thinking of, where they tried to make a swimming pool
Yeah.
where they just like spit in it.
You know
They
what?
just kept spitting in it.
Early night, I think they were influenced by Nickelodeon because like Ren and Stimpy, and then MTV,
Yeah.
Ren and Stimpy, and Beavis and Butthead, stuff like that. And cartoons started to get gross in the 90s. Because
Yeah.
all these cartoons, now that you're bringing them up, all these Cartoon Network cartoons had some element of being gross.
Yeah.
A lot of them did.
Yeah.
Either creepy or gross.
Yeah.
I swear, somebody tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. I swear, there's some episode of SpongeBob where they're being, the health inspector comes to the crab shack.
Yeah.
And they don't pass the health inspection for some reason, and the guy dies. And
Yeah, that's the
SpongeBob
episode. Yeah,
hides the body,
Yep.
buries it, and hides it. This is a kid's show.
Yeah. Well, there's also it's not a Cartoon Network show, but I remember Rocko's Modern Life. I think there's an elevator to hell.
Again,
There's
yeah.
an elevator to hell in one episode.
These. You know what? Maybe this is the beginning of kid shows that were not really for kids,
Oh yeah, there's a
or not totally for kids.
Yeah.
Sort of
well, there's-
Shrek-like,
they
where you
slip
could
tons of jokes in those shows.
right for where adults could there was stuff for adults and stuff for kids both.
Yeah.
All right, number 3. My third thing on my list is X-Men the animated series.
Which
I know
I
as
also-
soon
I
as I
also
said
watched,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, as soon as I say that, I know you hear the theme song in
yeah.
your head. One of the best cartoon theme songs of all time. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da.
That's the thing I think of immediately with all of these shows, but especially that one. Yeah.
That one is like I
I think of that, and I think of the montage of all the X-Men and the big bold fonts they had on them. Had a
Yeah.
different one for each one.
giant comic book fonts.
Yep.
All theme songs, I hate theme songs in general, and I
Yeah.
skip all themes and theme songs and whatever. Now that you can skip them on, like Netflix and stuff. That one might be that one I could handle watching every time. It's quick, it's catchy.
Yeah.
The song is so good. But that one's like
There's a
Batman
few.
too, where like you go back and look at it. So I watched the first episode is called Night of the Sentinels. It starts off with Jubilee, who is Chinese American. I did not realize it until
Yeah.
I watched the show recently. And the Sentinel does a scamp. Who is this?
Yeah.
Jubilee. Now I know she's 90 pounds and she's, quote, Chinese American. I actually had no idea. Anyway, this is like Batman in that it's sort of surprisingly deep. Is that the word I want? Sophisticated for a kid's
sophisticated
show?
might be a better word.
Again, for a kid's show, but it's surprisingly sophisticated for a kid's show. Episode 1, you start off the Sentinel, and it's silly in the way all these kids
Yeah,
shows are. Like, it's so contrived.
Oh, of
and
course.
it just
yeah,
doesn't make any sense. But it's a lot of fun if you just turn your brain off and just watch it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't like
Don't
that's
try
like
to,
classic.
Don't try to judge it as like an adult.
No. Yeah, of course not. This is, to me, this is classic X-Men. Like, and maybe it's just because it's when I grew up, but like they looked the coolest.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
the most popular. Jim Lee was selling like 100 million copies of the X-Men every month.
Yeah.
Crazy popular. This was like X-Men at the top.
Yeah.
And the show is the art style in the show. They try to kind of copy the it's kind of weird. Like there's a lot of black ink in it.
Yeah.
Like they were trying to copy the comic book style, and it's sort of ugly, kinda, but it's
Yeah.
sort of cool at the same time.
I feel like all those old shows, it's like they're kind of most all of them. They're kind of ugly when you like watch them.
Sometimes it
in a
looks
way,
really
yeah.
cool, but most of the time it just looks sort of kind of ugly, but
Yeah.
sort of cool at the same time. I don't know. It worked. And Wolverine. It's funny that first episode, like Wolverine cannot stop. Wolverine. I didn't like Logan as much as a lot of people because I thought Wolverine was too much of a jerk.
Yeah.
And then I watched episode 1 of the animated series. Like, wow, okay, he's got nothing on this version of Wolverine. Total jerk. Bub, I'll cut your throat. And it's funny because, like when they draw his claws, it'd be hard enough to draw those claws and animate them. But like
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
all like, they're just crazy. They're sticking out at weird angles.
Oh, yeah.
and stuff. The Beast, and
Oh, yeah, I forgot about
quoting
that. Yeah, yeah.
Alfred Lord Tennyson and
Yeah.
Hamlet, and it's really interesting. This is a kid show we're talking about.
Yeah.
So the first episode, Jubilee is upset because she's a mutant. And
Yeah.
her parents are upset because they found out their kid's a mutant.
Yeah.
And now she's being hunted by this Sentinel. And she's taken in at the Xavier School for gifted students, gifted people. Anyway,
Yeah.
the mutant school. So that she can learn to use her mutant power for the good of all mankind.
Yeah.
This is a children's show, okay? This is episode 1 of this children's show. It's like, wow. Actually, my daughter saw some of the first episode of X-Men, and
Yeah.
she's like, Beast was running around on the ceiling. She's like, he's standing on the ceiling. That's cool.
That's awesome.
It's my 4-year-old, you know? So anyway, the X-Men was awesome. It's got like the best theme song of all time. And I watched every episode of the X-Men. That was prime X-Men.
It's great.
All right.
And I'll tell you a funny thing. This is a brief aside. I won't stick
No,
on
go
it.
ahead.
But honestly, anytime I think about the X-Men animated series, I think of this live action show. I don't think there was, but like, I think it might have been like a sort of like a made for TV movie. I forget. It's been a long time since I've watched it. But it had like a show that was kind of like X-Men, but not really. It's like Diet X-Men
Huh.
called Generation X. I remember it had like similar characters. It had like a kind of
Is
like
that a live
Jubilee-esque
version one?
characters. Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
live action show. Had Matt Frewer, the guy who did Max Headroom.
The only
That's the
reason I
main
know
bad
anything
guy.
about
Yeah.
Generation X is because it had that guy with no jaw.
I don't remember.
It
that.
looked like he had
Yeah.
no jaw, like fire.
I just remember they
coming out
had
of his
like
mouth.
a Jubilee type character who was like playing an arcade game and she was getting into it and like sparks were flying everywhere.
Well, maybe
Shit.
she was Jubilee. She was in Generation X, right?
Was she? I have no idea.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I just know it in my mind. It's like Diet X-Men, but I kind of remember it really well actually.
Man, when I was growing up, I guess comic books were like at the peak. I think comic books today like sell nothing.
Yeah.
For several reasons.
Maybe.
You know, one reason of which is like when I was a kid and you'd go to the store, comic books would be on a rack.
Yeah.
So like you just go to the gas station and you see a spinner rack
Yeah.
of a bunch of comics. You just pick one up.
I feel like it's really graphic novels now.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like you never do you ever see comic books at the store? You just go
I don't think so.
going to places you never
Yeah.
see comic books. I don't know why they stopped doing that. And then just stupid things like I don't know. I'm not a comic book expert, but like when all the Avengers movies and stuff were coming out, and somebody can fact check me if I'm wrong about this, but when all the comic book movies were coming out, like 2008 through 2018, right?
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Probably, I don't know.
I think it was, basically 10 years
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Infinity War. So you got, Tony Stark, Iron Man, and you got, Chris Hemsworth, Thor,
Mhm.
and all these characters. But when you go to the comic book shop, the characters are different.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've got Ironheart and Jane Foster was Thor. It's like,
Yeah.
that's weird to love something you see in a movie and then go to the comic book shop and say, oh, I can't find it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Interesting.
don't know. I'm not an expert. Anyway, for whatever reason, comic books just don't sell like they used
Yeah.
to. So when I was growing up watching this X-Men movie, it was like comic books were selling millions of copies a month.
Yeah.
I had Spider-Man, X-Men, I would read some stuff like that. And the show was pretty close. Really, I think I know more about the X-Men from the show than the comic book. Like,
Probably,
if I
yeah.
had to search my mind, like, what's the X-Men lore in my head?
Yeah.
It probably comes from the comic book. Probably
bet.
same for Batman,
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Because it's not like I learned all my Batman information from reading Detective Comics.
Yeah.
I think I probably got it from the show.
And it was
from-
probably just easier to pick up inside the comics because it's in your house
yeah.
at the same time every week.
I just didn't read comic books like that.
Yeah.
I liked comic books. I still like comic books. And I've read plenty when I was a kid, but
Yeah.
not so much that I just knew all the Batman lore.
Yeah.
So I probably got all the lore I get from X-Men and Batman and all that stuff probably comes from the shows.
Yeah.
The TV shows.
I bet.
By the way, before we get into your third one, did you steal this chair from our Panera Bread?
It kind of looks like it now.
The logo
It came with the table that my parents got me.
that is so funny. That chair
Yeah,
has somebody stole this chair from a Panera Bread and sold it to you. It's got the same coffee cup looking logo thing on it.
That's hilarious.
All right, your number 3 pick.
My number 3 is anime,
Anime.
which is kind of funny. I liked a lot as a kid in the 90s when you couldn't really get it readily.
Mm-hmm.
Then as I got older, I wasn't really into it until like here recently where I've been reading more manga and stuff like that and watching some anime. Especially there's this YouTube channel called VHS No Anime,
VHS no anime.
which is just VHS copies of like 80s, 90s anime, exactly up my alley.
Does it just stream? Is it just videos of
Yeah.
the tapes?
Yeah.
Oh,
Of the
that's
VHS
hilarious.
tapes. It is literally 100% exactly up my alley. In the 90s, the Sci-Fi Channel used to show anime on the Saturdays
Okay.
in the, like the mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
So they would show stuff like Battle Tank Dominion,
Uh-huh.
Police, and Vampire Hunter D. But the one that really stuck with me that is still one of my favorites to this day, and Unironically, maybe one of my favorite art styles
Okay.
ever. Just the 80s anime style is Project Echo. Project Echo and the video game Clash at Demon Head are like my favorite. Yeah, you got Echo, Biko, and Seiko.
Okay.
Echo and Seiko are friends. Biko is jealous of their friendship and is trying to steal Seiko away from Echo.
Listen, if you're listening to the show right
I'm
now,
sure this is very confusing.
after you click the like button and subscribe to the channel, if you've watched Project Echo, tell us what you think in the comments.
Also, it's on YouTube. You can watch it.
I'm curious about this one.
In fact, all of the movies are on YouTube. There's like 5 of them.
Cool. Okay.
And
So-
so the I have the Blu-ray out right now. There's kind of a funny story behind it where like the master was thought to be lost for a long time.
Huh.
A lot of the versions of like the DVD and stuff like that were based off the Laserdisc version,
Right.
where they would just like, upscale it or whatever.
Right.
And there's a guy talking about wizardry earlier, Robert Woodhead. He later went on to distribute anime,
Uh-huh.
and he just found the master tape to it in a warehouse somewhere, just like bumped into it.
Really?
He was looking for something. I was like, huh, well, there it is. So he just like called the guy and said, hey, do you want this?
Oh, yeah. I see that. Remaster from the original film negatives.
Yeah.
Awesome. You know, that's probably something people listening to this show, that's something that they could go check out.
Yeah, for sure.
If you have any interest or just want to see something that is new to you, or just, or like, kind of like anime, like that classic anime art style,
Yeah.
go check it out.
There's that. And there was also Sailor Moon.
When you say Sailor Moon, that first of all, that show is huge, but like
Yeah.
the theme song is
It's
like
so
a
good.
virus. It's like Ebola. You catch it. You catch the theme song like a virus,
Yeah.
and you just can't get it. As soon as you said Sailor Moon, I'm hearing it in my head.
Oh, yeah. And I remember being kind of drunk in the car at some point and just launching into the theme song and singing the whole thing in the car. But yeah, so Sailor Moon used to come on really early. Our sister and I used to watch it. But like, I think we tried to record it on the VCR and it wouldn't.
Couldn't
work.
get it?
We couldn't get it to work.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get up that early in the morning, so we just like stay up all night and watch it in the
Oh,
morning.
really?
Yep.
Oh my god, it's like waiting up for Santa Claus.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible.
I remember some specific.
Just
thing,
think
too.
nowadays you could go to some weeb, internet website or something and just watch them all. Just
I think
download
you can
all of
stream
them
it
and
on
watch
Hulu.
them. Oh, really? You can watch Sailor Moon on Hulu?
I think so. I don't have a Hulu account anymore.
Sailor
But
Moon was huge.
Sailor Moon's dope.
It is still.
Although, admittedly, I haven't watched it since I was a kid.
a tuxedo night.
When I still had a
Oh, I love your tuxedo night.
tuxedo mask. Yeah.
Oh, I got
and
it wrong.
I just in my head I still think of those old voice actors, which I know
the guy
were
with the top hat.
Yep.
He throws roses. And he's got this mask on.
Darian.
Oh man, anime cartoons are amazing. You could do crap in cartoons. It's like it's just
Yeah.
you could do crap in cartoons. It just doesn't work in real. It's like the
yeah.
what is it? The what did they remake not long ago? Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
And you look at the stuff. All right, you watch Cowboy Bebop, and then you see, oh, there's a person who sells like pets who has a turtle on his head.
Yeah.
That's in the cartoon. For some reason, you accept it, but if you saw that in a show, that wouldn't fly.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Just
stuff
your
you can do
brain
in
just can't
animation.
process it. So
Yeah.
like animation is so special because you can do all kinds of crazy stuff in animation. The brain just
Yeah.
won't accept it
I
with
love
real
animation.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sailor Moon, OG magical girl anime. Had the girl who transforms into Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
Fights evil at night, Queen
Uh-huh.
Beryl or whatever.
Fighting
Um,
evil by moonlight.
I have, like I said, I have a skewed version in my head that maybe not a lot of the younger people have because I watched the '90s with a different dub
Yeah.
where they, localized everything for an American audience. So it's not Usagi, it's Serena. Her friend's name was Molly. She weirdly had
That's-
a Brooklyn accent.
Oh,
For
yeah,
some
yeah,
reason.
Yeah.
I love. Oh man, the voice actors are so weird. Luna, the cat,
Yeah.
Sailor Moon's cat friend, who sort of mentors her through it.
Uh-huh.
Sounds like an old woman.
Yeah.
I love it. I love those weird, quirky voice actors.
And as usual, if you like the show, the manga is significantly different.
Yeah,
than
I need to
the
read the
anime.
manga. I've never read the manga.
Always much longer. Like I read
Yeah.
Akira.
Yeah.
Akira is a cool movie, a cool manga or anime.
Yeah.
And I went back and read the manga later. First of all, way longer.
Yeah.
And Akira's worth reading just to look at the artwork.
Oh, yeah.
Kotsuhiro Otomo is a complete
Amazing.
beast.
I
First
need
of all,
to read Akira. I've never read it, but his art is amazing.
I just can't imagine how long it took him to draw those windows.
Yeah.
You look at these scenes of Tokyo. Oh my God, dude.
Yep.
It took you a week to draw that one panel
Yeah.
of the entire city of Tokyo. What is that, 1,000 windows? It's ludicrous. God. So it looks good. And the story is expanded. you know, and a little different
Yeah.
in the manga than it is in the character. But, you know, if you wanted to buy every volume of the manga, you have to shell out some money.
Oh yeah,
Cost
that's
you a couple
the kind of
bucks. That's what stinks. It's like-
fortunately, a lot of that stuff you can find online and read.
yeah.
it. But yeah, for some of the editions are expensive.
I read some of this stuff back in the 90s where like you'd find some site
Yeah.
where someone would take scan the Japanese version, and then literally like some blessed soul would take the time to go into every dialogue balloon
Yeah.
and do a translation.
Yep.
The work I couldn't even imagine. But anyway, that's how I read
God bless him.
Naruto.
Hats off to him.
That's how I read Dragon Ball Z or
Yeah.
Dragon Ball, Naruto, stuff like that.
Man, I want to watch Dragon Ball.
Yeah. Now that's another one. Another old anime we used to watch as kids.
Yeah.
When I was a young kid, you could watch it on antenna on some channel, but you had to get up really early in the morning. Dragon Ball, the
Yeah.
classic Dragon Ball when he was a kid. And then Dragon Ball Z is later. That was big when I was a little older.
Yeah.
That got
Well, Dragon Ball-
huge.
The original Dragon Ball, I remember we had a VHS tape of one or two episodes. I remember I had the episode with the guy. I don't remember the plot. I just remember the end of it is that Goku uses his staff
Uh-huh.
and sends him to the moon, which is great. Dragon Ball Z is another show I remember too, watching a lot.
Dragon Ball Z is way different than the original Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Because now he's an adult. It's just different. Like,
I watched it on Toonami and I watched it up to the
Yeah.
end of the Frieza saga.
if I had to watch it
Um,
now, I would watch they've got a chopped up version
Yeah.
that's where they chopped all the filler out.
Yeah, it's
It's like
excessively
a
long.
third at the size of the
recall.
original one. I would definitely watch that because it was so
Which
slow.
It's kind of interesting because, like, for a show that was as big as it was when I was a kid, because I was the age for that show really when it came out.
Yeah.
I don't really have that much of a desire to go watch it again,
Yeah.
even though it was like huge and it kind of was. I don't know, influenced me in some ways, I guess. I love Akira Toriyama's art.
That's just a classic. Yeah, it's just one of those things where the aesthetic is perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
You like the characters, the art style is
Yeah, yeah.
perfect. But yeah, do I want to go back and watch it again? No,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
really. It's really just repetition. Like, supposedly he wanted to stop it after Frieza, and for whatever reason, maybe he was talked into it. They're like, just keep going, baby, keep going. We're printing money.
Oh, yeah, it might be the studio was just like,
we can't
nah.
count this money fast enough. Keep going. And I don't blame him for that. So I think it was originally supposed to end after Frieza, the ultimate opponent. But then after that, it just keeps going. And now I can't even imagine how powerful. He could destroy the universe if he sneezed right now. He's
Yeah.
that strong.
Anything,
He's that freaking strong.
anything after Frieza, I know. Like
Now it's
nothing
like
about.
Dragon Ball Super. I don't know what's going on with him right now, but he can turn into like God Goku and Super Instinct Magic Goku. I don't know. I see headlines
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes. It's like back in the day, it was a big deal when he was a little kid. Like he could take out an army by
Yeah,
himself
yeah.
because he was an alien. And then at the very end, it's like Frieza. Oh, he's so powerful he can destroy a planet.
Yeah, yeah.
That's strong enough. But now he can take out the universe if he wanted
Like
to.
the spirit
no
bomb. He's like-
question.
He's like gathering power for the spirit bomb. Like, I can't miss or I'll destroy the
Yeah,
planet.
exactly. I'll rip the fabric of space
absurd.
and time. I will destroy the God and the devil if I drop this spirit bomb right now. It's
Yeah.
that strong. Ridiculous. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up right there. Look, we were just sort of reminiscing about old cartoon shows. Listen, if you like this kind of stuff, you know, like nostalgic looks back at, things when we were growing up, let us know in the comments because all the information we get helps us make the show better for you in the future. If you like the show, subscribe. If you're using Spotify or something like that, follow the show, rate the show. We appreciate that. Even if you didn't like it, tell us what you think. Helps us make the show better. We appreciate you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Bye-bye.